Epic's grant for an alternative app store? Self-interest? Conflict of interest? Or just more money for Apple? This is MacVoices. Today's edition of MacVoices is brought to you by the MacVoices Dispatch, our weekly newsletter. Visit macvoices.com/newsletter today, sign up, and stay up to date. The Alt Store PAL officially goes free for EU users following a mega grant from, guess who, Epic Games. So, am I reading that right, that Epic Games is subsidizing an alt app store?
Not subsidizing, just giving grants to alt app stores. And I think in this case, it's to anybody who uses that store doesn't have to pay the store fee that's associated with it. So it's not just subsidizing the store with a grant, it's subsidizing the users.
Okay, I thought that was the definition of subsidizing, but maybe I'm missing something. So, Brian, where'd you get this quote?
That's from in the middle of the article, I believe.
Okay.
Yeah, about the middle of the article. Yeah, it kind of speaks to the fact that it's going to creative, noteworthy, and innovative projects, typically built around the Unreal Engine or related projects. In the Unreal Engine, you see a lot of games and stuff that are built with Unreal Engine. That's by Epic.
So we have a game company supporting. Is it, Marty? Will you accept supporting an app store, an alt app store, against a company that they've sued and that they orchestrated the lawsuit against? Is that another mic drop, guys? Come on.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah,
so,
I wish Jeff was here for this one.
So I don't know. I found bio information of their CEO and
the Sonos CEO.
the Sonos CEO. Yeah.
Yeah. Web, he said he started in 2012.
I mean, although I don't have anything against salespeople, he came up through the sales chain, and he left RIM and joined Sonos in 2012. And there's an old video out there on the web about Steve Jobs of why great companies turn to. And he basically says that they turn from visionary, product-oriented entrepreneurs, and they get taken over by either salespeople or bean counters, and that's when they go downhill. I think this is a self-inflicted wound. So there was a lot of comments in one of the articles about this that instead of firing 100 people, there's only one person they should have fired. So honestly, I don't know. I'm just I haven't really studied this, but I'm surprised. I'm surprised they're still around. I figured with the introduction of the various Apple home HomePods and then the HomePod Minis, I would figure that would have seriously cut into their lead. But I guess they came out with new products and new earphones and things, so that gave them a second lease on life. But now they just have some internal mistakes that they're. I think in the order of the people I feel sorry for are your number one are their customers, and then tied for second place are sort of their employees and their investors, because this just looks like just horrible management.
Yet it's a little surprising that he's been there since 2012. I mean, that's a pretty long run, and there have been some great. I mean, Sonos. It's only recently that Sonos seems to have had some real challenges. I mean, they've addressed a lot of the challenges to their territory very well, And so it's a little surprise. I mean, that's why I'm never quite sure that CEOs should be held to account for some of these mistakes. I mean, they preside over it, but somebody had to approve this. So I don't know.
Well, he came out with a mea culpa saying, I tried to push things out and we pushed it out too quickly. So obviously, a lot of stuff broke under the surface, so he raised his hand and took blame for it. So I agree with you, Chuck, and a lot of other things, but I think in this case, CEO Patrick Spence, has identified himself as the responsible, what Apple would call the DRI, the directly responsible individual. So I hope they can get over it quickly.
Yeah. To circle back to the Epic story. So Brian, you ask, does this line in the article mean there's Apple still getting the money? Apple does, however, still charge a core technology fee for this process to work, but the mega grant now covers this expense for the alt store team, which is why it's now free instead of being subscription based. So Apple, I mean, Apple's still getting some of its money, maybe not all of it, but it's still getting it, and it's taking it from Epic Games.
Mm-hmm. Kind of funny.
Yep.
Huh. Okay.
Yeah, so that's another CEO who's done all sorts of value creation on behalf of his shareholders, but that's a topic for another date and another time.
Yeah. Believe me, over the past few weeks while you were gone, we've been beating on Sweeney pretty good. Last story of the evening, and Jim, I especially want to hear. I have thoughts on this, but I want to hear what your reaction is to it. That developers must now share phone numbers and address on the EU App Store to meet trader requirements starting in October.
That article says reminded developers that that was a big deal in the early spring in the developer community. Everybody was like scratching their head. And there's some developers that pulled their apps from being sold in Europe.
Well, and Jim, you just hit it. This is not an Apple requirement. Apple is doing this because they're required to by the EU.
Right.
And, I look at it, okay, a business phone number, that's not that tough to get. But to require an address,
right.
This goes back.
People thought, and a lot of these small developers have nothing but their home address.
Yeah. So I feel like once again we need to start asking the question: is the EU just throwing their weight around a lot, and to the point of distraction, to the point of it being unreasonable?
Well, the EU doesn't care what I think, or
yeah, but I do. What do you think?
Well, I'm not selling in the App Store in Europe, but I'm not selling in the App Store at all. So, it's, I haven't looked into it that closely. I sure would be reluctant to put my home address.
Well, I mean, look, let's face it. Anybody can probably, if they're even partially Google savvy, can find our respective home addresses if they really want them. Phone numbers might be a little bit harder now that we have cell phones, but I'm sure with all the hacks, somebody can find a phone number.
I think the address probably depends on what kind of name you have. I mean, if your name's Chuck Smith, it's probably going to be hard to find your name.
Yeah.
Even for my name, there's quite a few, some amazingly other, apparently there's an Illinois legislature member with the same name as me and whatnot. But other people, yeah, it's super easy to Google them and figure out everything you want to know.
And so, we started out the top of the show with some discussions of privacy, and yet this seems like it's requiring developers to give up a certain amount of privacy.
I don't think developers, especially in other countries, are a constituency that the EU rulemakers care about. And, you can kind of see their point too, that, on the other hand, is it good to have software, being installed by anonymous entities that, can't be tracked and, don't know who they are, don't know where they're located? That seems problematic also.
I would agree with that statement, and I'm not quite sure where the middle ground is, but I can't help but wonder, first of all, is anybody going to be checking on this? Or can I just put down 1234 Jones Street, London, England, and whatever the postal codes are? Is anybody going to check on it? So
I think that,
I suspect at most they
this is
might.
the address. This is the address that Apple has on file for you. So I don't think you want to lie about that. Or you probably, might not get your payments or whatnot.
okay, that's a fair point.
How does Apple remit payments, Jim? Well, okay. They're based on your general knowledge. Is it through a paper check, or you do it?
No, you have to give them all your bank. And I was in the App Store at one point, in the Mac App Store. But in order to give them your bank information, you've got to give them, sort of like them doing a background check on you.
Yeah.
And even if, for example, to get a Stripe account, you've got to give Stripe a bunch of information, but Stripe doesn't turn around and publish that. So,
right. And
but
probably
no state or federal government here requires it. So that's
right.
why it's happening over in the EU.
Right.
Probably the long term is it's going to wind up to be illegal for individuals to sell software.
Whoa, that's a pretty broad statement, Jim.
Well, I'm talking about maybe 20 years or something, but you couldn't set up shop and say, I'm going to, sell medical equipment or whatever. It's just going to be more and more regulated, and that's probably the end game.
So what would prevent me from setting up an LLC and publishing my favorite flashlight app? As and that makes me I'm not an individual now. Now I'm an LLC.
I'm sure it'll be a continuum. So yeah, I'm not saying that this is going to prevent shady people from publishing software, but I think this is so central to society that I think the bar is going to be raised on who we let do it.
Time will tell. We'll see.
Yeah. Well, on that note,
well, I may well not see that. I don't think I'll see it. Certainly don't think I'll see it in my career. But I think if you look far enough down the road, so I'm not predicting this for, next year or even 10 years, but.
Yeah. On that happy note, that's everything we have for tonight. Let's go around the room, let folks know where they can find you, and then we'll go from there. And I'm going to flip it around again because I'm going to give Web Bixby the first out since he was the last in. Web, thank you for being here. You and my favorite quilt. You're muted, Web.
Yeah, I need my cheat sheet. So, let's try. How about Web Bixby at Threads? I'm on Threads, so usually any of the platforms you do Web Bixby, you can find me there. So this week I'm on Threads. So
okay, good. Thanks for being here.
Thank you.
Mark Fuccio, I hope you're staying cool in the dog days of summer. Where can folks connect with you?
On X at Mark Fuccio, MarkFuccio, or same name on LinkedIn.
Great. Thank you. Thank you. Jim Ray, I hope you're around for a long time to see some of the changes, whether they're good or not, but we want you around. Where can folks find you?
Best place is either on the web at provue.com, PROVUE, or same spelling, Provue Jim at techhub.social. That's on Mastodon.
Thank you, sir. Good to have you. Marty Jencius, welcome back. No, not welcome back. You were here last week. What am I saying? But you and your dog, I'm glad that you made it through the weekend. Where can folks connect with you?
Connect with me at Jencius, Jencius, at mastodon.social. You catch me here on Tuesday nights on MacVoices Live, Thursdays on In Touch with iOS with Dave Ginsburg, and my own podcast and stream that I'm doing with Eric Bolden, Vision Profiles, about the Vision Pro headset. You can find that stream and information to connect with us at youtube.com/@visionprofiles.
Great. Thank you. You're holding up the Vision Profiles banner since Eric couldn't be here.
Yeah.
Brian Flanigan-Arthurs, I know you're going to be watching the sports apps for us. Where can folks find you?
Let's see, the best place to find me is on Mastodon, Brian8944 at mastodon.cloud.
Excellent. Thank you.
Thank you.
Last but not least, David Ginsburg. David, thank you for being here. I know where folks can find you. Where can they find you because they don't know?
Thanks for having me, Chuck. I appreciate it. You can find me at InTouch with iOS, intouchwithios.com. My YouTube channel is youtube.com/InTouchWithIOS. Chuck will be on the show this week. I'm excited about that. As well as you can find me on the Mac Show on Fridays on the British Tech Network. And I'm on Mastodon at DaveG65 at mastodon.cloud. Thanks.
Thank you, David. David's excited about having me on the show. David doesn't have much of a life. I'm sorry. So, folks, I'm Chuck Joyner. This is MacVoices Live. We do this Tuesday nights, 8 p.m. Eastern, 5 p.m. Pacific. You can join us in the chat room at youtube.com/MacVoicesTV. The group has been kind of quiet in there tonight. A few comments, but not as many as some nights, but still always good to see everyone. I'll be back with more soon. Until then, as always, thanks for watching. Visit MacVoices.com for show notes and to connect with Chuck on social media. Get involved in our Facebook group or like our Facebook page, and get more out of your Apple tech with MacVoices Magazine, free on Flipboard and on the web. And if you find value in it all, consider supporting us through either our Patreon campaign at patreon.com/MacVoices, or by making a one-time donation via the PayPal link on our front page and in the show notes of each episode. You will join these fine people who help bring you Mac Voices. Advertising handled by Backbeat Media at backbeatmedia.com. Bandwidth provided by CashFly at cashfly.com.